one of the most incredible things that Rabbi Kaplan taught about, and he himself, he must have put hours into learning about this, was the book of Ezekiel. The first chapters of the book of Ezekiel describe what's called the vision of the chariot. When we got married, he was at our wedding. And shortly after that, there was a Sheva Brachot. There was a celebration for the bride and the groom. And at that Sheva Brachot, Rabbi Kaplan came and spoke for 45 minutes. And of all things to talk about to a bride and groom, he talked about the vision of Ezekiel. And only years later, when I was asked to do the editing for the book Inner Space, in which Ezekiel's vision played a major part, the whole second part of the book is dedicated to the commentary by this incredible man who lived this. And so it was now already taped, and I had it from the celebration of my wedding. And so when I read, another thing about the rabbi was that he wrote very often about the same subject in 3, 4, or 5 different places, because ideas for him were like Lego blocks. And he put them together and took them apart and put them together in creative ways every time. That's why when I was editing his book, Inner Space, the teachings that he had given over that became the book Inner Space, I had a wealth of things to choose from. In order to strengthen the oral presentation in the book, I had to choose from a wealth of places where he had written about the same ideas. And one of those ideas was the vision of Ezekiel. The main thing that Rabbi Kaplan brings out about the vision of Ezekiel, the main thing that interested him, the main thing that moved him, because he felt the need of our generation, he had his finger on the pulse, was the return of prophecy. In other words, Ezekiel describes his prophetic experience and what he had to go through to get to the prophetic voice that spoke to him. And so Rabbi Kaplan felt how important this was for us to know about this so that we could start preparing ourselves. It's quite ambitious. What do you mean prophecy? But he said, we are promised. It's written in the books. The Rambam, Maimonides himself, says that we know that prophecy will be reinstated before the Messianic age. That's the later stages now of the pre-Messianic period. That's what he believed. And he brought tens of sources to bear on that. So he was truly, and why? Like on a very simple level, why? What do you want prophecy for? It's because every solution that we come up with to solve the problems that we confront now in our generation, if you be honest, every solution we come up with brings in its wake 10 more problems. We don't have the wisdom to truly solve the problems that are confronting us. We need that higher wisdom. And in order to receive that higher wisdom, to prepare ourselves, we have to prepare ourselves. We have to be open to it. We have to know that it exists. We have to believe that it actually happened once and it will happen again. So in the vision of Ezekiel, we're told in the first few verses that Ezekiel was in Babylon already. The Babylonian exile was in 3 stages. That Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, brought our people out of Israel, destroyed the temple in 3 stages. The exile of our people in 3 stages. At one point, I think it's the 2nd stage, Ezekiel is among those who are exiled to Babylon. He has this vision. Daniel was in the 1st stage with his friends, and the 2nd stage was Ezekiel. He has a vision. The skies open up, at least in his mind. It doesn't have to be literal, but it's real nonetheless, and perhaps even more real than if the sky would open up in any physical way. So prophecy is an inner experience, and Ezekiel experiences it in such a way that the first thing that he encounters is what he calls the storm wind from the north. And Rabbi Kaplan goes into the different ways of understanding that. And certainly on the psychological level, when we're trying to get some degree of quiet inside of us so we can be in that state to receive, the mind is just active beyond belief. It's a storm wind. And then there's a great cloud. That's the next stage. And that's a certain vacuousness, a sense that I don't know where I am. it's dark, it's too quiet. It's a lack of sensation. And then the third stage again is called the flashing light, like lightning going forth and coming back very quickly, burning. He goes into a deep explanation of the experience of fire, of light. And then he says finally he gets to the breakthrough point when he experiences the voice. So this is the major part of the second part of Inner Space, is Rabbi Kaplan's commentary on this. What does it have to do with us? It has to do with applying a deep teaching from 2,000 years ago to our psychological makeup. It's teaching us, it's teaching us that we too could be capable of following this pattern and understanding it, the dynamic behind it, in order to get to that deep place in us, which is the equivalent of prophecy. So really, that's what he was into. That's what was his motivating force, to write about these things in a way that's meaningful to our generation, a generation that's seeking for a deeper experience, to inform us that this is what it's all about, that this is what the godly experience is about. It can be attained. The people who are meditating in our generation and don't know anything about the fact that our teachings contain incredibly rich information about meditation, meditative techniques, and what the experience is, the dangers of the experience, and the pathway through those dangers to the goal. So Rabbi Kaplan was somebody who did meditation. His prayer was profound because he saw it as a meditative system, and it was all connected to the attainment of prophecy and the return of prophecy in our generation.